Yo, what's going on, Headliner Nation? Kyle back with the Fantasy Headliners. We're continuing our Dynasty coverage. We've really ramped up that portion of our offering this offseason, and quite honestly, I'm loving all of the positive comments about it. A lot of you sound like you're getting some really good stuff out of this, and today's video is going to all be about rookies who, you know what, 2021 may not be their year, but if you go acquire them right now, you might get them pretty decently cheap, and you can reap all of the benefits and rewards later in years to come. So I've got a few guys to talk about in this video today, but make sure that you hit the subscribe button here on the Fantasy Headliners. Make sure you hit that like button as well. And if you're looking for more of that deep diving information on a lot of the guys who are just drafted, make sure you subscribe to Headliner U, our college football channel. Go check that out. Chris is doing a ton of player profiles over there. So a lot of these guys that we're talking about, you can go over there and you can find way more in-depth content to really get you up to speed on what kind of players these guys are. For this video, it's going to be all about fantasy football. So let's hop into it. Got a few guys that we are going to take a look at. I've got a quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and a tight end for everybody. And then we've got a couple of guys that are going to be members only Holden Chubb videos. So if you haven't became a member here on YouTube yet, you can hit that join button down below. $4.99 a month, extra content, extra video content. We're going to do an extra live stream this year. That's members only. We have like this content here, you're going to find emojis, badges, all of that good stuff. So let's talk about our quarterback first. First quarterback to take a look at, Kellen Mond, quarterback out of Texas A&M, drafted by the Minnesota Vikings. I actually really liked this pick for the Vikings. They needed to get a younger backup quarterback for Kirk Cousins, and they go out and do that. And the thing about Mond is he is going to be, he's a guy that's going to need some time. He's not necessarily a guy that will probably be able to come in and play right this instant. But I kind of put him in the same category as like what Dak Prescott is. Like if he were to come in and try to play right away, could he be successful? Yes, but there are some things to his game that if he works on, he'll become much more successful down the road after Kirk Cousins has moved on from the Minnesota Vikings. So this year, you're really not going to get anything out of Mond. Possibly next year, not really, okay? Because you're looking at like $45 million in dead cap if the Vikings try to get away from Kirk Cousins. 2023 is going to be that time. So Kellen Mond sitting for a couple of years behind Kirk Cousins, I think is really, really good for him. So for you Dynasty owners, especially in super flex leagues, if you've got space on your taxi squad or your bench or however you do it, grab Kellen Mond in a trade this year, put him on your bench, stash him for right now. And just think about the players that he could potentially have around him. Obviously, Justin Jefferson being the first one that comes to mind. Hopefully, Dalvin Cook is still there. Irv Smith Jr. They will end up adding another wide receiver. Adam Thielen probably won't end up being there or being a huge part of the offense when Mond takes over in 2023. But he's going to have weapons. He's going to be able to succeed. This is a guy that we grab this year. Moving on to the running back position, Ramondre Stevenson. Now, if you've been around all offseason, you've heard me talk about Stevenson. I absolutely love this kid. Now, he doesn't have the greatest draft stock in the world. Why is that? Well, because he did have a little bit of off-field troubles while at Oklahoma. He did get suspended. I believe it had to do with weed and having it on him during their bowl trip a couple of years ago. So he missed some time being suspended for that. So there have been some things there. That isn't going to worry me. Okay, there's different off-field issues that are worse than, having some weed on you. Great decision on Stevenson's part? Absolutely not. Anyway, moving on. This year, probably not going to do a ton, okay? Obviously, we have Damian Harris. Obviously, we have James White. We have Sony Michel. You have Ramondre Stevenson right now. And of course, if Cam Newton is the quarterback, then Cam Newton is the guy that's going to get a ton of touches at the goal line. So Stevenson probably isn't going to be like a huge help at the goal line this year, but definitely could see a LeGarrette Blount type role in the future where Stevenson becomes, that guy that's going to handle a lot of the touches on the ground. And then Damian Harris is a guy that comes in, like they spell each other back and forth. And the good thing about Stevenson is he's not just going to be this plotter, that's this guy that you're going to stick in short yardage, goal line, things of that. He's a pretty athletic dude. He's big. He is big, but he is athletic. He's going to be able to handle himself on any single down. If you take a look in the next year, obviously Sony Michel, I think a lot of us anticipate him being gone. His fifth-year option was not picked up. James White is only on a one-year deal. He could probably be gone after this year. Then at that point, all you have is Stevenson and Harris. Cam Newton's gone after this year with Mac Jones, so now you're not worrying about Cam Newton stealing a bunch of goal line carries. Stevenson becomes very, very valuable next year. I think he's probably going pretty early. I think you're going to see him go anywhere between that early to mid second round of rookie drafts right now. I've seen him going a little bit later, not too often. I think people are buying him with the understanding that they know next year is going to be the opportunity to really use him. But if you're making some sort of a deal this year and you need like just a little extra piece, sometimes you try to make those deals with a team and you're like, hey, I need a little bit extra. I need just toss it in for me. Stevenson could be that guy. Get him as a toss in this year. Probably not going to do a ton. If Sony Michel ends up getting hurt and doesn't play a whole lot, if James White came back and really isn't going to end up doing a whole lot either and just is on the bench, coming in and a little bit of a change of pace and things of that nature. Maybe he gets in there. Maybe he scores some touchdowns. But, if you don't end up getting him right now, you can wait just a little bit longer until we get into the season. There's a team that needs to make some room or needs to acquire a veteran because they're having injury troubles. Stevenson's definitely a guy to target now rather than next offseason. My wide receiver pick for all of you, I'm not trying to be biased. It's Michigan wide receiver Nico Collins, drafted by the Houston Texans. I would say get this guy right now. Nico Collins, to me, is not the athletic freak that DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown are, but he's had kind of a similar draft process. And what I mean by that is DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown both were pushed down draft boards because when you looked at their college production, it was not good. And it's basically been the same thing for Nico Collins because at Michigan, and it's kind of funny that Nico Collins and Metcalf and Brown are kind of being correlated to each other here because Shea Patterson ends up being the equalizer that threw to all of them at some point in time. Shea Patterson, for those of you that don't already know it, I'm sure you do, sucks. He's absolute garbage, okay? So as a freshman at Michigan in 2017, he only played in 2 games. He ended up getting hurt, but then he comes back in 2018, 13 games, 38 receptions, 632 yards, 6 touchdowns, averaged 16.6 yards per reception. And then in 2019, in one less game, 37 receptions, 729 yards, 19.7 yards per reception, and 7 touchdowns. Collins is definitely a guy. Then, of course, he opted out of the 2020 season. But Collins is a guy that can go up and get it. He is a guy that can win down the field. He has that strength. He has that ability to fight with some of those cornerbacks that are a little bit stronger, some of those cornerback one type players. He's probably not going to have to face any cornerback ones, though, because Brandon Cooks in Houston is going to be on the other side of him, and then Randall Cobb is going to be in the slot. Kiki QT at this point, yes, he's had some good games, but he's been, for the most part, pretty unreliable, okay? Houston has basically shown that they're not in love with him, Now, obviously, we've got a different coaching staff and things of that nature that could, maybe utilize him more than he's been utilized in the past. Not really worried about that right now. Andre Roberts coming in. I expect Nico Collins to beat him out, and I'm expecting Cooks, Collins, and Cobb to be the three guys that are on the field. And we know this defense isn't going to be any good this year, so they're going to be throwing the ball over and over and over. Right now, Deshaun Watson, we don't know what's going to happen. There's still legal things that are playing out right now, so I don't want to comment on that part too much. If he does end up playing, obviously we know he can get him the football. If he doesn't, then it's Tyrod Taylor that's going to be throwing in. We know Taylor, even though he's inconsistent, he's got an arm. He can go down the field to his wide receivers. He can find Collins down the field. Get him right now. Not a whole lot of people are talking about him, and he's definitely a guy that you want to have on your roster. For the tight end position, we're going to go with Brevin Jordan, tight end out of Miami, also of the Houston Texans. Now, last year, we had Darren Fells and Jordan Akins that were the guys that were tight end worthy in Texas or in Houston. And if you watch, our start-sit videos and stuff like that, I talked about Akins and Fells a lot last year because it was like either or. One of these guys in any given week was having a good week. I expect Akins to be that guy this season. But Brevin Jordan, as early as next year, can unseat Akins and be that number one guy, okay? Be that number one tight end. And we know this offense would like to utilize the tight end positions. And when you've got, Brandon Cooks, who has had some, issues with staying healthy. Obviously, he's had some concussion problems. That's something to keep an eye on. You have Randall Cobb. He's over here now in Houston. What can he do? How much does he have left in the gas tank? Nico Collins, we've talked about him already. So you don't have a ton of weapons that you look at it and say, oh yeah, they're definitely 100% better than Brevin Jordan. Brevin Jordan is a guy that can produce. I mean, he produced while he was in college. And honestly, if it weren't for all of the crazy Kyle Pitts hype this year, Brevin Jordan would probably be getting talked about a little bit more. And he's just not. Last season, really kind of that breakout year for him. Only played in 8 games, but he had 576 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns. So he can score. He's a guy, he averaged 15.2 yards per reception. So we know that he can make some moves after the play. He can do some things with the football in his hand. He's that type of an athletic player that we can make that work. So that's why I'm thinking Brevin Jordan is the guy that we get right now. We know that rookies take a while to really kind of go to the next level, to be able, rookie tight ends that is, to be able to contribute to an offense, to be able to help, to put up numbers. Normally they're not going to do that. Brevin Jordan's probably not going to do that this year, but because of kind of the lack of long-term weapons that they have, as soon as next year, Brevin Jordan becomes a guy that we are grabbing on a consistent basis. And he's athletic enough that absolutely he could be a top 12 tight end in the next 2 or 3 years. I don't doubt that at all. Some of it's going to depend on who his quarterback is and how all that plays out, but we got to keep an eye on that and just see what happens. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I've got some rookies for you to acquire. Don't forget, if you're a member, make sure you watch for that members-only video as well to drop so you can check out the last 2 players that I have here. If you're interested in becoming a member here on YouTube, the join button is right down below the video. You just got to click on it real quick, $4.99 a month. There's a bunch of extra content that comes with it. That's really awesome. But if you are not able to do that right now, that's okay. No worries. Do the free thing to help us out. Hit that like button down below. Make sure you leave a comment. Are there any rookies that you're trying to pick up right now? And of course, if you're new here to the Fantasy Headliners, hit that subscribe button and subscribe to Headliner U as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get out of here, but stay safe, stay healthy. I'll catch you on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.